Ladies and gentlemen,
everybody wants the prize, but nobody wants to pay the price.
Can they be pushed? Do they have a sense of urgency? Do they want to be great?
And then, of course, you look at them and be like, yeah, right.
Everybody wants to be on your team when you're on top.
I saw the angel and the marble, and I carved until I set him free.
Go be somebody, bro.
But the most important part of the Be Somebody journey is the resilience.
Welcome to the Be Somebody Podcast, your real and raw destination for all things entrepreneurship, leadership, and culture. One of the top-rated business podcasts in the world. Now give it up for your host, Be Somebody Inc. and BSB Group International founder and CEO, Kash Shaikh.
Welcome to the Be Somebody Podcast. I am back with my partner in crime, Herbie Pilata.
What's up, Kash?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you tonight?
Sporty. You're looking sporty.
Sporty spice.
I always try to go with the neutrals, the grays, and the blues. And what color is that, dude?
I don't know. Turquoise-ish?
Hopefully, if you guys haven't already, you're checking out besomebody.com to see the video versions of our podcast, the trailers. Sometimes, Herbie, we don't put the full video out because Josh gets behind.
Yeah.
And I say, you know what, nobody got to see that whole thing, man. Nobody wants to look at me and Herbie for 1 hour. So we
and I'm
put
in the
out
same shirt or wearing a Be Somebody t-shirt anyway,
Exactly.
so... This episode, though...
But if you get it, we'll put you in the trailer, Herbie, so at least people know what I'm talking about.
Let's do it.
I'm sweating right now, Herbie, because today's been an exciting day because we just finalized and submitted our application for the Inc. 5000, which is really the most prominent list for private companies, growth in private companies around the country. So we're hoping to make that list. We're really grateful, really blessed for the growth that we've had at Be Somebody Inc. and VSB Group International. So I'm hoping we make the list, Herbie.
Fingers crossed.
But you know what? It's actually a crazy time right now to be a startup anywhere in the world. Everything that's happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, everything that's happened with the unrest and uncertainty here in America, it's a tough time to be a startup founder, an entrepreneur. Access to capital has become an issue. You know, people that are raising money, working with venture capitalists, a lot of those pipelines have started to dry up a little bit. A lot of investors that I've talked to out in Silicon Valley have said they're not putting any money into anything right now. They're literally, I was talking to Jeff Lewis, who was part of the Founders Fund, which was run by Peter Thiel, and now he has his own firm, was saying, I'm not putting any money, I'm not investing any money in anything and riding this out. He's like, I'm going to be sitting at home, quarantining until this whole uncertainty starts to unravel itself. You've seen it with the stock market going up and down. So we've talked a lot about it on the show, about industries and kind of the polarizing effect the pandemic and the ensuing events have had on the economy. But really, I'm really excited today to start talking about the effect it's had on the startup community. Herbie, do we consider ourselves a startup?
I mean, we are, but...
Well, I don't know if we consider ourselves a startup, Herbie, but we still got that startup mentality, that startup energy. And I always want to keep that, right? I always talk about it.
Yeah, Kash. I mean, those are things that you reiterate to us over and over again in our team meetings.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people may not know that we've had different progressions, different stages of our growth at Be Somebody. And, you know, we had a mobile app that was a global experience platform. We had our skills training program. Now we're back to our roots as a content platform at Be Somebody Inc. So we've pivoted and moved along the way as the business has demanded, or as the customer or the client or the environment has demanded. And along the way, we've had different strategies of how we grow. Because when we originally launched the Be Somebody app, I was raising money. You know, actually, I was here in Cincinnati, and our first institutional investor came from right down the street here, EW Scripps, one of the largest media companies in America. They love what we were doing from a content standpoint. They put in actually $1 million as our first institutional investment in Be Somebody. I was raising money. I was meeting with venture capitalists for 3 years. We ended up raising a little over $2 million. You know, you see all the headlines and everything that comes out of $40 million, $200 million rounds. That, you know, a couple $1 million doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, for me, it was. I mean, I never asked for any money in my life. You know, I always worked for everything. I felt uncomfortable asking for money, raising money. It was my least favorite part of the job. I think I got better at it as I went along, and as I met with more venture capitalists. It's definitely helped me today when I look back at our business at BSB Group International. But, you know, $2 million, I mean, that's a good chunk of money that we took from people. And what I learned in that process is that I didn't want to do it for years. One of the reasons we pivoted, to be completely honest, Herbie, is we were having trouble raising money, and our app wasn't generating enough revenue for us to stay afloat. And when you play in that startup game, most of the focus is on growth. It's about user growth. It's about, more people leveraging your product. And people don't really talk about the numbers very much, especially in Silicon Valley. I mean, I was always shocked that nobody was like, well, how much money are you making? Like, what are your margins? It was always like, how many users, grow at all costs. And to do that, people raise money over and over and over and over, as entrepreneurs who are listening know. It was working for us in the beginning, but then when we got to the point where we weren't growing fast enough and we didn't make money or weren't making enough money and couldn't raise money, obviously this is when most companies shut down. Yeah. What we did was pivot into a jobs placement and skills training focus, which was a different business model that actually enabled us to start making some money. Still not enough to keep growing and have a payroll and have people on the team. So I had to downsize the team. And a lot of people ended up leaving too as we made the pivot. You can learn all about this in episode 1, right, Herbie, of the podcast. So if you haven't heard it, go back, please, besomebody.com, listen to the first episode, you hear a whole story. But the thing that I wanted to talk about is when we pivoted, we started making money, we started growing additional services, working with corporate clients around the country. And then I was at a crossroads because at that time, a lot of VCs were hitting me up wanting to invest. And I was so excited after years of getting rejected by all these VCs that I'm like, man, they finally want to invest in Be Somebody. Like, let's take on some money and let's grow. But I started having those conversations, man, and I got that feeling inside that like, this isn't right for me. It's right for some people. It's not right for me. And I didn't want to raise money. And instead I said, let me focus on these incremental revenue streams for our business that would enable us to grow on our own. I knew it would take longer. And, it was a slower, steadier pace, but I really believed in doing it that way. I talked to my mom, who's my number one counselor, and she told me, take that approach, slow and steady and grow. And, it's funny looking back because it really wasn't that slow because we just filled out the Inc. 5000. So it took a couple years, but man, we really got into a great place without having to raise money. That's why I'm excited about our guest today, because our guest today was one of the people that I went to when we pivoted and I said, hey, I want to raise more money. I heard you're one of the best venture capital attorneys in the city here in Cincinnati, really in the country. Very well respected attorney, knows the entrepreneurship space. I said, I want to work with you. We connected on LinkedIn. I started saying all these reasons I wanted to raise money. I started sharing about my background and my kind of mindset. And he was like, man, Kash, you strike me as someone that doesn't really want to deal with investors, doesn't really want a board. You don't want anyone above you telling you what to do. Like, I'm not sure if venture capital is the place you want to go. So he was one of the people, aside from my mom, that influenced me to not go down that route. He actually gave me the stamp and the courage to accept my own mentality, because I thought to be an entrepreneur, you got to raise money, you got to play that VC game. And he was like, you know what, like this probably isn't right for you. You probably don't need to go this route, and you just go ahead and do it on your own, and we'll still be buds, I was like, sorry, you don't get a cut of the deal anymore, but maybe I'll send my employee agreements to you or whatever, or disagreements. When you file a lawsuit, maybe he'll help you.
I just filed one this morning, actually.
Perfect.
With Kieran,
we talked to him about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Herbie, I'm excited to talk to our guest because we have differing viewpoints, I believe, on this topic. And I want him to educate us as well as our audience about kind of the different sides of it, because some parts of entrepreneurship are right for folks and some of it isn't. And it's really about understanding the type of business that you want to have, the type of leader you want to be, the type of surroundings you want to have, the type of accountabilities that you want to have. For me, I don't like borrowing money, man. I don't like borrowing anything. I don't like to owe anyone anything. And I'm really grateful because, as you know, Herbie, earlier in the year, we actually paid off all of our investors. And we didn't give them the 100x return that some were wanting, but hey, we gave them something. And I think they all feel good about it. Nobody lost money on Be Somebody, which is pretty cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. And some of y'all made some money. You know who you are. But anyway, so Herbie, when you look at the stats here, And thanks again to Alex Henry for putting these together every episode. Alex Henry, shout out to Alex Henry. According to Crunchbase, early stage VC deals are down 44% compared to pre-crisis activity. And the deals that are getting cut the most, that are getting hurt the most, are seed stage deals. Those are down about 52%. And for those of you who don't know, seed stage are early, the earliest of early stage companies. That's the rounds that we raised at Besomebody Inc. That's the companies that are just trying to get off the ground. I personally don't believe in seed stage funding, and that's what I want to talk to our guest about, because I really believe growth capital is where you should be thinking about raising money, because at that point you've already proved product market fit. You already have a business model that you believe in. You've already got customer base. You've already got all the elements of a strong business, and then you're just trying to pour a little gasoline on the fire, But the early stage is a little tougher. Now, the great part about it from a VC standpoint, if you get in early, you can make more money if the business takes off. So I want to talk to our guests about that. Some of the other stats. The Startup Genome Survey also found that since the beginning of the crisis, 84% of startups in North America have had to terminate full-time employees, which is really unfortunate. There's been a lot of layoffs. It's hit the startup community even harder in a lot of ways. And also from the same survey revealed that 41% of startups across the globe have only enough cash reserves left to last them about 3 months. So, people are running out what we call runway. The runway is getting shorter. Burn, which is basically the amount of money that you're spending per month, the burn rate is continuing. The runway is getting smaller. It's harder to access funding. It's a tough time to be a startup right now.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to start a business right now. I feel like every time you turn on the news, open up the newspaper, or an online article, another company is laying off people, or shutting down completely.
Right. Yeah. In the newspapers in the 1900s, when people used to open up newspapers.
I don't open the newspaper.
I don't know.
For those that do
in
open the newspaper.
In the villages where newspapers are still open.
Some places don't have
Herbie,
the internet.
Let's get our guest on the show.
Let's do it. Let's welcome to the show a leader with a bachelor's degree from Harvard University and a law degree from the University of Cincinnati College of Law. He served as both the CFO and general counsel for multiple venture-backed companies and has spent the last 16 years practicing law at Thompson Hine. Today, he's a partner and the chairperson of the firm's early stage and emerging company practice. Please welcome, from Cincinnati, Ohio, David Willbrand! Hey! Josh, you on the line?
On the line.
David, what's going on?
Oh, man, that's a lot. My main takeaway right now is I don't really care about the rest of the podcast. I want to know what it would cost me just to have you follow me around every day for the
This
rest
is
of my
Herbie.
life.
People,
Yeah.
This is what typically happens to Herbie. People want to take him along.
Yeah.
They want to bring him to, conferences, bar mitzvahs, office openings, everything.
Or just shadow you for the day and narrate what's going on.
No, seriously. I feel like as a 15-year-old boy, if I had you behind me, introing me, my life would have been fundamentally different. So,
Hey, we can start tomorrow if you want.
I've got mad respect for all that enthusiasm. Thank you. I feel
you.
great.
If you had Herbie following you around at 15, you definitely would not have went to Harvard. That is
No.
for certain.
No.
That is for sure. But David, we want to get into your background, which is really impressive and amazing. Your career over the last 15, 20 years, everything that you've been doing at Thompson Hine and before that. But I was just talking with Herbie at the top of the show about how we connected, because we actually reconnected when I moved back to Cincinnati and started, and I'm not even sure how we got linked on LinkedIn, but we did get linked on LinkedIn, and we started, appreciating and commenting on each other's content. And then somehow I was like, man, this gentleman here seems to know a lot about this space. I wanted to find an attorney that really understood the early stage environment and really run through some questions that I had, because I was pivoting the company, wasn't sure if I wanted to raise money, thought I had to. And that's when our early conversations took place here in Cincinnati.
Yep. No, I remember that. And it was what struck me, and this is what I really appreciated about you, Kash, was that when I sit down with entrepreneurs for the first time, I always try to ask the entrepreneur, what is your definition of success? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing this? And 9 times out of 10, to be honest, I get just kind of the road answer. I want to go raise venture capital. I want to build a unicorn. I want to IPO. I want to build $1 billion company. And, when I then ask some follow-on questions, what I find is that's actually the case truly with very few entrepreneurs. Actually, very few people. That's when you think about what's involved in that and what it means, and from the perspective of meaning and lifestyle and the kind of company you're creating and what you're trying to achieve. That's a very narrow band of entrepreneurs. And most, if you sort of really press on them, you could say, that's not really what you want. Let's talk about what you want, because this is your life. Let's figure out how to help you manifest your version of success. But you were already there. Now you had your own journey. Right. And so I met you later in it. Right. And so you had done a lot of that work already. And so by the time we connected, you had a very clear perspective on that. But it wasn't just kind of the one size fits all, here's the Toll House cookie recipe. I mean, you knew what you wanted, and I think it's one of the reasons we work together so well, is because, when you do come to me, you have a very specific perspective on what it is that you want. And it's not just this kind of quick transactional legal moment. Everything ties into this larger holistic strategic approach and an outcome that you're trying to get to. And it's always, I love doing that. It's fun working with you in that regard. And it's great when I cross paths with entrepreneurs like that and have those sorts of relationships.
Oh man, thanks, Dave. No, I remember those conversations so well, and I always tell my team I've got 3 clear objectives with my life. Number one is to make a positive, meaningful impact on the world, and that's very broad, but purposely broad, because I leave myself the flexibility to figure out the best way to execute and manifest it, as you say, to make that happen. Number 2 is I want to do that with people that I love and care about and that I enjoy working with. That's really important to me. If that isn't there, then I'm not fulfilled in the right way. And number 3, I want to be successful doing that. And part of that is how I define that success. And you know how weird I am, David. So I created a scorecard for this. I defined it. But one part of that is financial success. But it's never been the number one driver for me. And what I learned along this journey through all the ups and downs is anytime I saw someone that was just chasing the dream of the dollars or the $1 billion company, the unicorn, they never had the resilience necessary, or the toughness, or the motivation, or the internal inertia necessary to keep going through the tough times, because money alone isn't enough of a motivation to push you through it. You really got to believe it, and you got to really, really want it. So yeah, I know we talked about a lot of these things when we first met.
Yep, we did. And see, it's just the fact that you can push through it like that, that's really important. I feel like, there are a lot of people that feel this itch to be an entrepreneur, and they have this sense that this is something that they want to pursue. And I think too often they're inclined to start making the move without doing the work up front of really articulating with specificity, why am I doing this? Right. What do I want to get out of this? What is this about? Because if it is just about, I want to be my own boss, or I want to make a lot of money, and when people trot those rationales out, I'm always kind of okay. I hear you, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be your own boss, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to make a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with wanting, people to have a lot of views and a lot of likes or whatever, but that can't be your number one priority, because first of all, there are easier ways to get there if those are your number one priority. Right. Number 2, if it's not a great way to organize a life. And let's get really into what drives you and what gets you excited and what sparks your imagination and your energy, and let's figure that out. And that's what you really need to try to capture. And then how do you bring that to the fore? How do you make it happen?
Yep. Well, I remember, and I promise Herbie's getting angry because we're not getting on to the your background and your journey, but we will. I just wanted to say one last thing, Herbie. So David, I remember it was like the third or fourth time that we met, and we were still, I was talking about raising money. We were talking about valuation. I was getting message from actually a lot of ed tech VCs at the time because we were pivoting to an educational and job training platform, as you remember, and we were talking through it, and you're like, Kash, I honestly don't think this is the right move for you. You don't seem like someone that wants to have a board, that wants to have, investors kind of telling you what to do. Like, I hear you. Like, I just want to be honest with you. I know you were kind of excited about this, but this may not be the right path for you. And I respected that so much because honestly, from a financial standpoint, I mean, obviously it in a lot of ways it would behoove you to tell me, hey, go try to raise as much money as possible. We'll do the deal for you, all that stuff. But you were just like, man, like maybe you don't need to raise money, especially if you're making some money now. It seems like that path for entrepreneurship isn't the best one for you. And it really gave me that final push between you and my mom, Dave. My mom was saying, don't raise money, go do it on your own. Between you and my mom, that gave me the final push to really be comfortable with that mindset and be like, you know what? I don't think I do. I don't think I'm that guy. And not that I know everything at all, because I don't. I made way more mistakes than I have, made the right moves in life. But I definitely learned from a lot of them. I just felt very confident in the direction, and I really wanted to build it with my team versus outside folks. And you helped a lot with that. So thank you.
No, I appreciate that, man. If I'm in like mom category, I'll take that.
I know, right?
All day long. That's pretty special.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. So can you please give us some background on your personal journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an open-ended question to ask a 50-year-old man. I mean, we could be here for hours, and I'm sure you'd be enthusiastic to listen to me talk that long. But I would narrow it down to this. I have sort of a simple view of life when you boil it down, which is the first half of your life is a dumpster fire, and the second half of your life is spent fixing the dumpster fire. So there you go. We can put like a hard pin in. Like,
boom!
David's
We got the quote. We got the quote to launch the episode, but put that on the card, Herbie.
That's it. Thanks for talking, David. We'll talk to you later.
That's right. That's it. So, the whole point being that, there's never been, a David Willbrand, born in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1970, moved around a lot, in the United States, in this era, at this time, in this family, in this space. I mean, every human being is a total one-off. And there is, zero true directional guidance in terms of the groove that you should find yourself, that you should move into, the steps you should take, the decisions that you make. I mean, we are all just making this stuff up as we go along.
Right.
Because we're totally unique in a totally unique set of circumstances. So, the dumpster fire portion of my life would be, did what I was supposed to do, ambitious kid, worked hard, reasonably smart, did well in school, was lucky enough to get into Harvard and, went there, was certainly humbled to be at a place like that. Great educational experience, surrounded by a lot of brilliant people, a lot of people a whole lot smarter than I was. Graduated with, like a lot of people at 22 years old, no clue. But feeling like I had to do something big because that's sort of what the world requires, right? And I went and I sort of found myself into like I had a part-time job doing some PR work, and I ended up through a couple of different steps working for the Ohio EPA climbing smokestacks, doing testing for pollution. And it was a horrible job. And the only good thing about being in a job that bad is that it forced me to say, all right, I cannot be in this any longer. I have got to figure something else out. And, like a lot of people, I didn't have sort of the guts and the courage to sort of figure out, well, how am I going to do this in the real world? So I thought, well, I'll just go to school. And I was like, well, I don't have the prereqs to go to medical school. I don't really know anybody right now who's pursuing an MBA. I guess I'll go to law school. You know, people always told me I ought to be a lawyer because I can string a couple of sentences together. That happens. You know, people say that stuff all the time. So I'll go to law school. So I did. And basically, I talked my way into University of Cincinnati Law School at the last minute. The class was already closed. It was over. I hadn't even taken the LSAT yet. And I just was like, I was so desperate because I was tired of tasting sulfur on my tongue in the morning from climbing those smokestacks. I was like, I got to do this. I mean, you know, desperation pretty powerful motivator. So I did that and talked my way in, and they were gracious enough to allow me to join that class. And, you know, went to law school, thought I was going to be an environmental lawyer, didn't work out, thought I was going to be a labor lawyer, didn't work out. Sort of randomly someone said, hey, why don't you think about being a corporate lawyer? I didn't know what that was. I didn't know anybody in business. That was not part of my life growing up. But it was a job. And I said, sure, I'll be a corporate lawyer. Whatever, I guess, you know, contracts, okay. So joined a law firm, you know, to be a corporate lawyer. So I'm 26 years old. You know, it's not like I'm 17. You know, I'm 26 years old, like a pinball. You know, again, a dumpster fire, just randomly bouncing around, reacting primarily.
You might be the first person in world history to call education at Harvard, law school, you know, being attorney, a dumpster fire. I mean, that's a high class dumpster.
All right, so it was a dumpster in a very nice neyborhood.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of like foie gras, and,
fragrant
nice
dumpster
wine in that dumpster. So you know, it was you know, it wasn't just fast food containers, you know, and just kerosene. So it was a nice dumpster fire.
Yep.
But you know, a dumpster fire nevertheless. But the thing that happened in '96 was when I started practicing. That was the beginning of the internet bubble, and where I happened to start practicing was in Cincinnati. And at the firm where I was, you know, we were representing a couple of the early venture capital funds in the Midwest, and I just had this opportunity open up to start doing venture work. I did one project, and I was like, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do.
Awesome.
And so it was a lot. So, you know, we all need that. Everybody needs some luck, and frankly, more than once. And I always say that, like, you got to do the work, and you got to put in the effort to put yourself in a position to have luck.
Right.
And then you have to keep your eyes open, and you have to always be aware and, like, you know, pivoting back and forth and managing your peripheral vision so that when luck appears, you grab it by the throat and you don't let it go. And so when that popped up, I was like, this is it for me. For the first time in my life, you know, I felt like this is really what I should do. And so started that process, and then the rest moves through very quickly. So, you know, I did that. I ended up going to Boulder, Colorado. You know, mountains are nice and the climate's nice, but I did it mainly because I did want to represent startups specifically. And in 1996, there just weren't startups in the Midwest. There weren't very many, but there were a ton in Boulder. And so I could do startup side representation work in Boulder. Came back to Cincinnati for family reasons. Was part of a couple of different startups, so actually left the practice of law. So I was at sort of a classic.com, and then I was with an enterprise software company. Did those things together for about 4 years, and then in 2004 had a decision to make. I'd practiced law for 4 years, did the startup thing from the inside for 4 years, and I had to decide, you know, am I a deal lawyer in a law firm representing clients, or am I an operator? Am I a startup guy who just, you know, happens to have a legal background?
Right.
And it really felt to me like I was the first. Like, you know, I think I was an okay operator. You know, like Michael Jordan was an okay baseball player.
Right.
But I felt like I was a really good deal lawyer. And so if I just compared myself to Michael Jordan playing basketball, I guess I kind of did. So I just took my dumpster fire up.
Yeah. I mean, the folklore of this dumpster continues to grow.
It continues to grow. That's right. That's right. You know, 23. And so I got into it and said, you know, I think I really need to I need to go be a deal lawyer, and I really need to be representing startup companies. And I think I really want to do it in the Midwest because I think the Midwest has hit a tipping point. So this was 2004. So I approached Thompson Hine, where I am now, and was like, look, I had this idea for a practice that you don't have, you know, representing these kind of clients, doing this kind of thing. And they bought it. They were open to it, and they said, sounds great. Let's do this. And so joined the firm in 2004. I've grown the team, grown the practice, still there, and still love it. I mean, yes, we have our frustrations, and, not every day is unicorns and donuts and, peanut butter sandwiches with peanut butter on both sides of the bread. But, it is, when you big picture, I get to work with people like Kash. I get to work with people that are passionate. They care about what they're doing. They're putting themselves into it. They're taking risk. They're investing their lives in this stuff. The conversations they have with me matter. Because they matter to them, and it's a privilege, and I treat it as a calling, and I love it. So that's kind of me, dumpster fire to putting out the dumpster fire and figuring out who you are and what you want to be and how you're going to deploy yourself in this world, and that's sort of where I've ended up.
That's awesome. What an amazing journey thus far. And I love that you said, we as humans are all kind of making it up, creating it as we go, which is, a parallel to what we often say and hear and talk about in the startup community of like building the plane as you fly it, trying to pull the parachute as you're falling, whatever the metaphor is. And so it's interesting to hear your kind of comparison of all of us and as humans to really what every entrepreneur who starts out is trying to do. Like, you think you know what you're doing, but you really don't. And you are creating your own mini dumpster fire and trying to figure it out. You play a role where you're at such a influential position with these entrepreneurs, because as you know, in the early stages, I mean, every decision is important, and it's typically a life-changing one for somebody at that stage, at least if they've really fully committed to it.
I feel like the relationship is really a sacred relationship, and I take it very seriously. Like, I want my clients to like and respect me and not just sort of buy services from me. Yes, it's my job. It's what pays the bills. I need to make money doing it. But, I want them to feel like, there's a person on the other end of the line or the other end of the email or across from them at the table that they can relate to and that really gets them. And for me, when I look at this, is that, and I've come to understand this better over time, just seeing how it works out. When we do what we do, we sort of myopically just sort of assume and think that, like, everybody gets it, because it seems obvious to us because, it's what we do every day. But, it became very clear to me over time, that when I work with these founders, with these entrepreneurs, they probably have, sort of a world-class level of expertise or insight as it relates to one thing. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's product development, maybe it's sales, maybe it's IP or technology, but they've got something that makes them transcendent. That's why they're in a position to do what they're going to do. And then they probably also have, reasonable fluency in some other things, some adjacent pieces and parts of a company. But for most founders, like, I'm the first lawyer that they've really ever interacted with.
Right.
Hopefully, unless they've, had some trouble with parking tickets or whatnot. But, they've never really, the legal stuff is foreign to them.
Right.
They've had no reason to ever have to think about the law or legal issues or the regulatory environment and how they comply with that. And so what I also discovered, and I don't think lawyers do this from a malignant perspective, I think they do it just kind of reflexively and accidentally, and quite frankly it works, and so it kind of reinforces itself. But it's very easy to play on fear, because you can drop in as a subject matter expert and say, I know you've never seen this legal space before, so let me terrify you about all the things that can go wrong and maybe are going wrong literally right now as we speak. And now I'm going to present to you the way through it. And it's probably like really expensive and takes a lot of time and energy, and it's highly distracting to the business. And it's not at all what this founder thought they were getting into when they agreed to this telephone call or this breakfast meeting. And now you just completely derailed them in ways that are not positive. The approach I try to take is to say, all right, I'm not going to try to scare you. Law is like anything else. Everything's about risk reward. Everything is about risk management. Everything. So what are we dealing with? All right, so this, maybe you're off center a little bit here, but you know what? Risk is low, let it be. We can float with this. It's not a big deal. This here, it could be a little bit tighter, but again, not that big a deal. This over here, you know what? If we half a turn of the Phillips screwdriver, we can fix that. Not much, no problem. Yeah, maybe no one's going to talk about it in a law school class, but it works. And then, every once in a while, there's something that comes up, and you're like, you know what? This is a real bet the company thing, or this really gets to your position in the company. This goes to your ownership interest, to your ability to control, or whatever it is. This is heart and soul. This is where it really matters. This is where we're going to put our chips in the middle of the table, and we're going to spend some time and energy and probably a little money making sure we get it right.
Right.
But helping to be a partner through that process, and not just like a grim reaper, who just kind of comes through with a bunch of documents that are hard to read and don't make sense, and you're terrified into signing them. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I try very much to sort of structure my practice around that sort of philosophy.
Yeah, no, I can say, as a client, I definitely experienced that because, it's true what you said. Most people, I think their first interaction or first observation of the lawyers or the lawyer in quotes they need to meet with, scary, pricey, frustrating, whatever it is. Those are kind of some of the thoughts that come into your head. But what I loved about our conversations were I walked away more inspired. I'm like, what can we do? How can we build? And I think that I really believe your approach to that client relationship, the management of what we say, the whole animal, like getting to know the person, getting to know what makes them tick, is so powerful in a lot of ways. The best business development that you can have, because you're really making a deeper impact and creating a stronger connection. Versus, and to your point, you're also flipping the script on what they thought the process would feel like, because typically, and obviously in my corporate days and at GoPro and things like that, we work with attorneys, and honestly, God bless them all, they're all great people, but I was always like, God, I got to go meet with legal today on that side. And I think when you're a startup or working as an entrepreneur, it's pretty empowering when you can feel like, let me just call my lawyer and run this past him, and let me see what he says. And it's that co-creation feeling that's much more inspiring and empowering.
Definitely. I appreciate that. I appreciate those words. And that's exactly right, Kash. I mean, that's what I think we should all be aspiring for. And that's true of lawyers, and it's true of anybody that's providing a service to another human being, right? I mean, you want to feel like it's a co-creative process.
Yeah.
So, I went to the FedEx shop today because I had to ship a piece of art, and it was funky, but we figured it out. And it was pretty cool because it wasn't like I wasn't just working with a vendor.
Right.
They were like helping me come up with the best solution to my problem. I just gave FedEx a nice little plug here. But that was
nice.
Not a sponsor.
Brought to you by FedEx.
It was a good moment. And you think about that as like the most basic commodity vendor type approach. But even in that situation, you have a chance to impact your customer or your client or the human being on the other side of that equation. And, and that's what I try to do in my practice every day.
Awesome. Well, Dave, in terms of what you do every day, can you give a high level kind of account of what your team does within the early stage space?
Yep, for sure. So it definitely is a team approach. And it's evolved over time. I'm a believer that, no human being should do the same job for more than 5 years max, and maybe even not more than 3 years. We tend to get bored, wear out, start to mail it in. You're just not as energized about it. And, I've been at Thompson Hine since 2004, but my job has changed a lot. I mean, I've been a lawyer at Thompson Hine for 16 years, but it's not been a 16-year job. It's been an evolution. And where I sit today is, I would describe myself, if you've ever done anything involving any kind of building project, with a home or whatever, I'm the architect or I'm the general contractor. Mm-hmm. And that's the role that I play. So all day, every day, I'm taking very, sort of top of funnel, high level calls and inquiries from new clients that are thinking about, things they may want to do, to existing clients that are, addressing a transaction that's coming up, or to someone who's just trying to work their way through a problem. And my job is to help people break it apart into its constituent elements and then figure out what they're trying to build. And this gets to where we started, how you define success.
Right.
And, what does success look like, and how do we create the most efficient solution to this particular problem? So, okay, based on everything you've told me, we're going to tear it all down. And it sounds to me like what you want is a 4-story townhouse downtown, or it's a 2-story, suburban home, whatever it is. All right, let's draft and draw up those designs. So I'm actively involved in that, and I consider it a creative process, or a co-creative process, to use your language, because it is collaborative, and very much actively involved in that. And then when we sort of have our head around, the direction that we want to go, the plans that we've articulated, that's when I really bring in the rest of the team. And those are the people that are really, they are subject matter experts and really, really good at what they do. They're great roofers. They're great electricians. They hang great drywall. They're really good at the plumbing. They get all that stuff done just with precision and with excellence and with great competence. And that's what I used to do early in my career too. It's the process, right? It's how you grow and develop. And they're good at it. And frankly, they're better at it than I am at this point, because they get the reps every single day. They're living in it. And they do that work really, really. They're also cheaper than I am. So clients like that. So, they get the work done, and they get it done really well. And then at that point, my job is really just to kind of keep an eye on things, make sure things stay in the groove. And then if there is like a little, if there's a little fire here or there, a little hot spot, I'll parachute in and help fix it, to the extent that maybe my experience or perspective can help, diffuse the situation, or sometimes it actually not defuse, you need to upfuse. I don't know if that's a word, but sometimes I need to get in and throw an elbow. I'll throw an elbow if I have to, I mean, that's part of my job sometimes, to be the bad cop and to be the person with, that breaks out the brass knuckles. It's not my favorite thing, but I'll do it. And if it's what's required to get the deal done, I'm happy to do it in this situation, not just to sort of, exercise my own demons, but because it's actually a tactic that's being, used towards an ultimate purpose. But that's really the way it goes. So I spend my days and weeks talking to lots of people about lots of things. My days are very varied. They're not just sort of pick up and start one client project at 8:00 and then at 5:00 put it back on the shelf. Not at all.
Well, when you talk about getting a deal done, typically what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so this is a place where I would say I'm incredibly sympathetic with our clients and with the parties to a transaction, because to be honest, when you get into the deal, and Kash, I know you've felt this, is that it is a very alienating experience for the business people involved, because basically the lawyers, and if investment bankers are in the mix, the investment bankers take it over. And then suddenly you find yourself, at the wrong end of a lot of emails that are coming at you randomly, just rat-a-tat-tat all day long, trying to get through this and push it through. And it's not coming from a bad place. I mean, the lawyers and bankers are trying to do their job. They're trying to get the deal closed. But what's happening is now it's moving into a different space. It's sort of outside the realm of the business people. Now you're dealing with, the priests and the priestesses, who have a specific language and a specific means of doing things. It's a little bit black boxy, a little bit behind the curtain. You're not really sure who's doing what, where it stands, what the issues are, what you should be focused on. You feel very reactive. You feel a little bit out of control and a little bit disempowered. And, I will fully admit, I'm deeply empathetic, totally acknowledge all of that, try really, really hard to make an effort to help diminish that, so it's not quite as intense. But I will say some of it just is what it is, and some of it's also room for improvement. I'm always trying to get better, and I could do better. But that's kind of how those transactions go. And you probably, I know you've been there and have felt what I'm describing.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love your take on this, because Herbie and I were talking at the top of the show about my evolving or evolved view on venture capital based on kind of what I went through, and based on being on one of the sides of those deals. And when we talk about deals, are we talking about, right now I'm thinking about fundraising, of, wanting to raise money, but also not wanting to give up a lot of the leverage or make a lot of the concessions or give up some control, which was really important to me. I wanted to be the one shepherding and safeguarding the mission of the company. That was very important to me. And I felt like I was losing my grip on a lot of those in a lot of these discussions. And that's why I've come to a place where I don't really believe in seed stage funding as much anymore, only on rare occasions, because I really feel like as an entrepreneur, you get so much more leverage once you've already proven product market fit and you're looking for growth capital and you're trying to pour that, proverbial gasoline on the fire. And I told myself, like, I never want to be raising seed funding again. I want to be in a position where if I wanted to raise capital, it's because I already know I got something big and people want to get on board. And here, by the way, here are the numbers behind it over the last 2-3 years. Here's how we're growing, and kind of play it that way. So love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so, when I started in 1996, if you were doing anything that involved software, you really did have to raise venture capital. I mean, you needed $5 million just to build an MVP. And that wasn't even the language we used then,
Right.
But because it was hard, creating software was, you needed teams on teams on teams.
Right.
Now, you can create an MVP with, on a Friday night with some freeware and, buying 7 pizzas for 8 undergraduate computer science majors.
Right. MVP, minimum viable product, Herbie. Minimum viable product.
Yeah, that's right. Minimum. Thank you.
I have to educate Herbie.
I'm thinking most valuable player.
Yeah,
like
Herbie
sports,
he was thinking Michael Jordan again.
Right. We're back to 23.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it is, I will say I have a preference for 24, and Kash, I know you do too.
Oh, for sure.
So,
always.
We'll just put that NBA reference aside.
Yes.
But it is there's a sense that you can get something built quickly, and it doesn't require a lot of money. And
right.
And to your point, Kash, it's that if you can do that, and it's sort of a test for founders, and I will acknowledge it's hard, but there's a little bit here. I mean, not to be harsh about it, but if you're not prepared to sort of make this initial sacrifice, then this probably isn't for you. And it's to say, like, you're going to spend a little bit of your own money, not a lot. You don't need $5 million, like I said,
right.
But you've got to figure out, just through resourcefulness and elbow grease and, willing to spend a little bit of the money that you make from your day job to invest in this thing, to create something, get it up, try to get some customers.
Right.
Right. So if it's a B2B play, meaning business to business, go call on some businesses,
right.
Try to sell it, hear what they say. If it's B2C, which means, business to customer, like directly, that's what a traditional app is, that you get to the app store. Try to get some customers to download it or some customers to buy it, whatever that is. And if you can do that, it does a couple of things. Number one, it gives you validation that there really is a market here,
right.
First and foremost. And the other thing that it does is now, if you do need to raise money, you actually have something you can talk about.
Right.
You can say, look, I had this idea, I went and built this thing, and then I took this thing, and people gave me money for it. That's powerful.
Yep.
And that's compelling. And if you are raising money, investors respond to that. What's not that attractive is I have a cushy day job. I've not been willing to give up any nights or weekends or to spend any time moonlighting on this thing, but I've got a really pretty 10-slide deck because I know somebody that's good at graphics, and
right.
They pulled this together for me. And here's my fancy idea that I'm presenting to you in a fancy way at Panera. And
right.
It's like, you might get some traction with that. That's a harder sell because it's just an idea. And you've also haven't demonstrated that you've kind of got the grit and the willingness to grind it out. And these things are all, it's almost become at this point just as sort of a stereotypical, and it's kind of lost some of its meaning. But, look, if you don't have grit for this, if you don't have the passion to like fight through and make some basic sacrifices early on, then you shouldn't do it. It's just not for you. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm not telling you you're a bad person. I'm just saying that it's just a mistake. It's not where you should be spending your time. You're not cut out for it.
Right.
And, and look, to be completely honest, to some of what we were talking about before, I'm not cut out for it. So I want to speak to this with total humility. Like, I think there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being entrepreneurial. And I will always describe myself as being entrepreneurial. And in that respect, I gravitate towards innovation. I try to be disruptive. I try to look for an edge. I try to find sunlight where other people don't see it. To me, that's entrepreneurial. But brother, I'm not an entrepreneur. I have a day job. There is a paycheck fairy where, if I don't show up for work for 2 weeks, I'm still going to get paid. Now, at some point, someone's going to stop that musical chair game. But it is, I'm part of an organization that's got some mass. Right. And that's very different than being an entrepreneur where you are diving into that abyss. Like, you got to make this thing go. And those are two fundamentally different perspectives. So when I'm sort of talking about these things of like grit and the grind, I don't want people to roll their eyes and think like, oh, Dave, no. Like, look, I am not that. That's not me. That's not me. And I know that about myself. There are other places where I have gifts. There are other places where I'm called. And what I'm saying is that you need to test yourself as a wantrepreneur. Like, are you just a wantrepreneur or are you an entrepreneur? And the test is, are you willing to do these things? Because if you're not, that's okay. Go be a lawyer, go do your thing. But you're not supposed to do this thing.
When I think about where I was, I actually was the guy that gave up quite a bit. And when I think about my VC pitches, and I probably pitched, over 100 VCs in 4 years, successful in about 11 of those pitches, success measured by getting a check. I had the story, I had the sacrifice, and I had the pretty 10-slide PowerPoint, but I didn't have the customer. And I didn't have the demonstrated result. And, to be honest, and I know you know this, and we've talked about it publicly, so we can share. Our first big check was from EW Scripps here down in Cincinnati, and it was $1 million check. And that came, looking back, probably too easy, based on a little bit of like my background at Procter, what we'd done at GoPro, the following we built on social. I think I did a pretty good job of painting the picture of the angel and the marble, but in a lot of ways it came too easy, and I thought that that's how it was going to be, and it almost worked against us and me in the process. I think if it was harder, and if they had said, look, you're not getting a dime until you get at least 10 customers, we hadn't even launched yet, we didn't even have a prototype yet. So then, and maybe that was a sign of the time. This was like 2014, where I think there was a lot of action in the market, and people were writing checks more frequently. When the market started to tighten up a few years later, then it became, a different story. The Silicon Valley kind of approach of growth, raise money and then grow. That's what I started to learn when I was living out there for a couple years. And, I shifted, because if you look at what we're doing now at Besomebody and BSB, I'm so focused on margin, on profit, on revenue per employee. Like, I was just focused on, downloads, users, growth before. But because I realized the power of independence and being able to call our own shots and being able to steward the business like we want, I really doubled down on the things I didn't focus on before, so that we could have a company where we could grow at the pace that we wanted, and maybe one day go back and say, David, let's go try to raise some money, but hopefully be able to call some shots when we do.
Yep, no question. And I think one of the great things about the way the world has evolved, and we were talking about how you don't need $5 million just to get out of the gate as a software company, is that what that does is, and this is, exactly what you're getting at, it opens up a whole spectrum of possibilities that you can take or embrace as it relates to, the path you want to take and the kind of company you want to build. So if you want to do that whole, hypercharged by venture capital, grow, market share, $1 billion TAM and the whole deal, you can do that. That is absolutely there. I have a lot of clients to do it, and they should. And it's, it's absolutely the right fit for the technology and for the product and for the team. But for others, it's not the right fit. So don't do it. And the fact of the matter is you don't have to, because you know what? There are a lot of software companies in America right now that raise no venture capital, that have lots of employees making money, paying for vacations, paying for mortgages, leasing cars, all that kind of stuff, just slinging software or tech-enabled services or whatever it is, and everything in between. So you have this, these rainbow of alternatives and options. And don't feel like you've got to do the venture thing just because, you read an article on TechCrunch and you feel like that's what you got to go do. Right. I mean, do what's right. Do what's right for you.
Well, and our master plan at Be Somebody at BSB, and Herbie's looking at me like, what's going to come out of my mouth? But I mean, we do want to be on the stage and the plane of some of those hyper growth companies. We just wanted to do it our way and take maybe the road that you didn't see on TechCrunch or you didn't see in the headlines, which is, the news out there of people raising money. Oh, this company raised this amount of money, this amount of money. And I was like, Herbie, let's have our news about first the impact that we make. Number one. Number two, the amazing culture that we've built and co-created. And number three, the money that we make, not the money that we raise. And I really do believe there should be a shift in, glamorizing the part of entrepreneurship or the startup life of raising money. And it should be more on impact, growth, financial independence, things like that.
100%. I mean, I tell entrepreneurs all the time, I'm like, when was the last time someone called you and said, hey, let's all go out for drinks. This is going to be great. Tom and me, we're going to party tonight because today I closed on my home equity line of credit.
Right.
Like that's happened never. But that's venture capital.
Right.
It's just financing. I'm not diminishing what it represents. I get, believe me, that there's a certain level of credibility and validation that's attached to that. Right. 100%. Totally get it. But at the end of the day, it's a means to an end. It's financing. Just like a home equity line of credit is financing. Why did you do that? Well, I got that home equity line of credit, not to just like spend the cash on foosball tables and comfortable chairs, but I got it because I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to do Z. Okay, we'll go do that and we'll celebrate that.
Right.
So the same with the venture capital. We're going to go celebrate that. And I think to the point you're making, Cash, which is to say, if you define that, you define what success looks like, then you can spend some time and energy thinking about how you want to get there. And maybe it does require venture capital, or maybe it doesn't. And you have some agency in this and some ability to sort of determine which way you want to go based on who you are and the way you want to live and the way you want this thing to grow and the kind of legacy you want to create. And you've got the ability to touch it in all of those ways. That's awesome. It's awesome.
Yep. Dave, what type of potential clients do you turn away that you say, look, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work with this type of person or company?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I turn away very few. So, at a very high level, I want people to come to me before they're even ready to come to me, because we don't even need to formalize a relationship. We can have a conversation. And, I always say, like, if I were a perfect stock picker, I'd be hanging out with Richard Branson and, on my neighboring island, right? I don't know who the winners and the losers are going to be. So you have to cast a wide net. That's the .com side of me. The .org side of me is like, I just want exposure to a lot of people. I love talking to people, man. Like, so I want to hear like people's stories and what they're interested in, where they want to go. That being said, you know, some basic filters that I do apply, you know, for me, I really do am looking for clients that probably will be engaging in a lot of transactions, because that kind of makes the math work for me.
So sorry about that, because Herbie, let's raise some money so we can help David grow continue to grow his practice.
That's exactly right. That is the takeaway. That is the motto for the episode. Go raise money for David. That's what it's all about. But no, you know, but I will tell you, like, there are people that I would call clients that I've worked with for, at this point, man, I don't know, 12, 15 years, that I have billed like very little to, you know, but I can help them on the edges. And a lot of it's off the books, and sometimes when it is on the books, it's not big, you know, but, you know, I'm definitely looking for people with a tech orientation or a biotech orientation. I'm definitely looking for people that are, you know, really want to grow these companies, not just kind of a slow, nice and easy Main Street business. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not my core. It's not my strike zone.
Right.
And that's what I'm primarily looking for. But, you know, like, good humans. If I feel like you're sleazy and lack integrity, that's not somebody I want to work with. You know, I don't want to be associated with that. So, you know, that's not it. Or if it's someone that I feel like is, you know, can be sociopathic, and we run into those people sometimes. You know, they're incredibly narcissistic. They don't care about the people around them. I'm not that interested in that anymore. There was a time where I would take a client like that. I don't really do it anymore. It's more trouble than it's worth. It hurts my heart. You know, it's just, they're hard on their employees. They're hard on their customers. They're hard on their vendors. They're hard on me. It's not worth it. Just not worth it.
Herbie, I mean, I got a lot of questions for David. David is another one that needs to be a reoccurring guest, I think.
Let's do it.
Every once in a while, I got to have my lawyer on the show. It's like part of the rite of passage of podcastdom. You know what I mean?
Just run some questions by him regularly. It's fine.
Well, Dave, I mean,
next time we'll get on and you'll say, all right, so I have this non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
Does these things really matter?
But by the way, we are getting billed for this, Herbie. We need to let our finance and accounting know. David will charge us for the time. You know, so no, I appreciate the insights. I mean, before we get out of the interview, before we let you go, what's the one most important piece of advice that you would give somebody that is in one of those cushy, comfortable jobs, or that does have an idea that they've been waiting on, thinking about, dreaming about? What's the one piece of advice that you'd give them?
This may not be popular, but I'll tell you the advice that I would give, which is I read an article a long time ago that was written by a novelist who was a very successful novelist, you know, had written many books, published bestsellers, whole deal. All right. And this person said, you know, they asked this person, you know, what advice would you give to aspiring novelists? And they said, if you can do anything else and be happy, go do that other thing. Because being a novelist is really hard. It's lonely. There's not a clear path. You're making it up as you go along. It's total white space, you know, insert jargon here, but you get my point. It's a difficult existence. So if you're going to undertake it, only do it because literally there is nothing else you can do to be happy. And that's what I would say to aspiring entrepreneurs, which is to say, I love that you've got this idea and I love that you have this vision, but frankly, if you can be happy in a day job, it's an easier life, man. It is. And you should only do this thing. You should only chase this thing if you can't sleep. If it's keeping you up at night, if it's eating at you all day long, if you feel like you're wasting time because you're not spending time on it. I mean, it's like a raccoon under your windbreaker, just nibbling at you all day long, gnawing at you, tearing at your flesh, then you got to go do it, because you can't do the day job because you got this raccoon in your windbreaker and you're like, I got to go deal with this. I got to go deal with this raccoon. So go do it. But you know what? If it's just kind of like, if you like working for a big company and, you know, you're coaching your kid's sports team and, you kind of have a life that works. You're drinking rosé with friends on Saturday nights, but then suddenly you have I got this idea for an app that I think would be kind of cool. And I would say, let it go. Don't do it. And that's fine. Don't be sad about it, and don't feel like you've got a good life. Keep living it. But it's got to be a rabid raccoon that's tearing you to pieces. How about that for an inspirational illustration?
Man, well, I was going to say, amazing advice. Totally agree, and so well said. And your ability to come full circle with the dumpster, to end with the rabid raccoon, was amazing. I've never seen it before. The picturesque image of now the dumpster burning with the raccoon on top. You couldn't have done any better, David. Thank you for that one.
That is awesome. I right now in my mind, guys, we got to make T-shirts. That imagery here is powerful.
Exactly. Hey, you know what? I'm going to work on that. That is my next step. I got
an idea for a business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Herbie's like, I have an idea I'd like to run by you, David. Yeah. But David, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to talk more with you soon. Just always insightful, always inspiring. So thank you so much. Hope you and your family are doing well, and looking forward to talking again soon, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate it. It was an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you guys. Thanks for reaching out. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate all you do.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
Take care. You thought we were going to talk about venture capital in the startup world of Herbie, but we talked about dumpsters and raccoons, man.
And a little bit of MVP, right?
Yeah, I know. I saw the confused, furrowed brows, when I was looking at, and I was like, David's using industry terminology, using that lexicon that you weren't sure about, but I tried to help you out there.
I didn't know. I appreciate it. So I was thinking, Michael Jordan, 23 MVP. I thought it all made sense. So
exactly. You were in the Last Dance realm for some reason. But man, I really respect David. He's an amazing attorney and really inspiring individual, great leader. I'm just so impressed with the quality of guests that we have on the show, man. All of our episodes just continue to blow me away based on what these guests have to share.
Yeah, they all have such wonderful stories, and a lot of them have a great past with you, and I'm still waiting for these embarrassing stories of Kash Shaikh to come out. So
I tell people, tell the stories, man. Let's keep it real. But I guess there hasn't been enough yet.
Nobody has any bad stories to say about you, Kash.
No, it's been cool to just take the trips down the memory lane and relive some of those connections and the moments and impact that we've made with people along the way. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been great to hear, and again, another great conversation with David today. So Kash, after the conversation, what's the one big thing?
Man, I really loved the advice that David had for aspiring entrepreneurs, and saying that if you can be happy somewhere else, go do that. Because in order to go down this road, whether it's a dream that you have or a business that you want to build or something that you want to pursue, it has to be this burning fire inside of you. It has to be that thing that wakes you up in the morning and the thing that stops you from sleeping every night, the thing that literally sets your whole being on fire. That's the epitome, that's the description of a calling, And I know when I left my corporate job to go build Be Somebody, that's how I felt, man. I felt like every day was one day too late from me jumping on what my true purpose was, my true calling. And I knew I was leaving a lot on the table. I knew I was leaving comfort and stability and money and some relationships. I knew I was having to give up a lot, but the feeling inside of me wouldn't let me let it go. And when I finally made that decision to go for it, man, it felt like this release. And the journey has been way harder than I could ever imagine. I've had to give up a lot more than I ever thought I would. There's ups and downs, but I still feel so in sync and so true inside with the calling.
That's such a powerful takeaway, Kash. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
And thank you for listening to the Be Somebody Podcast. Be sure to check out all of our full audio and video episodes on besomebody.com or listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get yours. We out.
You.